Hello, and welcome back to 50 States, 50 Murders, the podcast taking you, the listener, on an auditory road trip across all 50 states while discussing 50 different murders. Thank you all for tuning in to episode 15. Dakota, can you let us know where we're going to be traveling to today?
We're going to be in Wilmington, Delaware to look at the murder of Joe and Olga Connell.
Before diving into this week's podcast, I just wanted to do a really quick recap. Episode 11, we covered the state of Michigan. And last Sunday, I was able to take a day trip to Detroit. It was my first time in the state of Michigan. And Dakota, we talked about mom's spaghetti. You talked about how you never get to go there because you're not going to Detroit. I actually ended up taking the trip, took the plunge, and mom's spaghetti was pretty cool. All in all, did the spaghetti. I went with Gary. He got the spaghetti sandwich. Uh, are you still standing firm that you will never go to Detroit?
Yeah, probably. Did you go
Stand
to Eight
strong.
Mile?
So that's the one thing we didn't get to do. I was pretty
Ah,
bummed out
ye
about.
pussies.
We left and like literally on the car ride home, we both like at the same time were like, "Oh shit, we didn't even get to go to 8 Mile."
You
So
should have walked through 8 Mile.
yeah, we did not.
Got the
So
full Detroit experience.
yeah. So all in all, food was cool, scenery was all right. Um, I we ended up on a birthday tour that we didn't know about. It was like a bicycle bar, and we saw a couple of them. So I thought we were thinking you just jumped on whenever. And yeah, we're just riding along, and we realized in the middle of this that everyone knew everyone except the two of us. So after the first stop, they wanted to take a picture, and we're all just kind of me and Gary are just standing there looking at each other. And then finally, this guy comes up to us and he's like, "Okay, who are you guys?" And we're like, "We're just two random dudes, really. It's just two dude skis." We're like, "Who are you?" He's like, "Well, this is my girlfriend's birthday tour." We're like, "Oh, okay." So yeah, the tour guide was like, "Well, unfortunately, this is the last stop for you guys." And then they were like, "Oh no, it's cool. You guys can keep coming. You guys can ride along with us." So it ended up being all right. It was cool. Um, anyways, why I mentioned that, I got to plug our TikTok again. I uploaded a recap of my trip to TikTok, which you can find us 50 states, 50 murders. Be sure to follow along if you have not already. And to transition to that, speaking of TikTok, this week's request comes from Kenzie, and you can find her at Kenzie JXYNE. I don't know if there's a special pronunciation, but that's where you can find her at. So we appreciate you, Kenzie, for following along on TikTok and sending us a suggestion. This week's request was to cover the state of Delaware. So this week we're going to be departing from Woodruff, South Carolina, and we're going to be heading to Wilmington, Delaware. Dakota, Wilmington is the largest city in Delaware, and I found a pretty fun fact about Wilmington. This was a shocker to me, kind of surprised me. Wilmington was actually the home away from home for music legend Bob Marley. Have you ever heard of that?
No, I haven't heard of him being in Wilmington. No.
Yeah, so when he left Jamaica, he was actually living and working in Wilmington for quite some time. So as of today, because of this, they pay tribute to Bob Marley. Every year, Wilmington, Delaware hosts the People's Festival for Peace, which is a reggae festival. And this year is going to mark the 29th year in a row that they held this festival in Wilmington, Delaware. So if you are in Wilmington and you're looking for something to do in September and you like reggae, maybe check that out. It's not really my thing. I'm not a big reggae guy, Dakota. I can't imagine that you're into reggae, right?
I I've
Oh,
dabbled a little bit.
okay.
I had a buddy from Hawaii, and that they're big into reggae out there, so he got me listening to a little bit of it.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe that's something to add to your list if you ever make it out to Delaware. All right. So Woodruff, South Carolina to Wilmington, Delaware. It makes for a 9 hour, 598-mile drive. This week, we're going to be discussing the case of Joe and Olga Connell. But before we jump into this week's case, let's learn a little bit more about the state we're visiting, as well as some notorious murders from the state of Delaware. So, Delaware is nicknamed the first state. Plain and simple, it was the first of all 50 states. Delaware ranks 45th out of 50 in population,
Yeah, pretty
49.
something pretty interesting when you look at population for Delaware. Wilmington is the biggest state by far. It almost doubles the capital, which is Dover, at 39,000. Wilmington has over 70,000, which is crazy that it doubles the capital, but Akron has a higher population than that.
Yeah, it's very small. It's 49th out of all 50 states in size, right behind Rhode Island, state we covered earlier. But something else I thought was pretty interesting. Delaware almost doubles the size of Rhode Island. So that just goes to show you how small Rhode Island is. Teeny tiny state. Delaware was admitted to statehood in December 7th of 1787. Again, making it the first of all 50 states. When you look at the state flag, they're pretty proud of that. It's got the date and the seal. I threw the flag on there. You weren't a big fan of South Carolina. What do you think about Delaware state flag? Are you digging
Now,
it?
this is a little more interesting. It's more than just a tree.
You like this? I'm not a fan. All right.
I mean, what's that? What's that animal in the middle? Is that a
It's like a cattle. It's like a
okay?
cow or something. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I mean, it's a
Got
cool
the
color. Got some what would you call that? Some pioneers, just I don't know, a ship.
yeah.
That's cool. We'll post it on the TikTok so you guys can check it out. With an average altitude of 60 feet above sea level, Delaware is the lowest state in America. We talked about Colorado; they're a mile high. They're the highest state, so Delaware is going to be the lowest state. And one more interesting fact here: Delaware is recognized by neighboring states as home of tax-free shopping. They're one of 5 states with no sales tax, and due to extremely friendly tax rates and regulations, there's actually more corporations registered in Delaware than people. So you kind of already hit on this a little bit, Dakota, but Delaware's population is around 1 million. There are actually over a million different corporations registered here. More than 60% of the Fortune 500 businesses are incorporated in Delaware. Just to name a few: Coca Cola, Google, and Apple. So if you're thinking about starting a company in your basement and you end
Yeah.
up making it big, you might want to locate in Delaware. A
It
lot
does
of,
not surprise me that those three are on that list.
right. Murder per capita. Our last 3 states we covered all were in the top 10 for murder per capita. So this week we can breathe a little bit easier. Delaware ranks 40th out of all 50 states with 3.6 murders per 100K. And as far as geographically speaking, we're finally departing the southeast region of the United States. We've been there for a while now. Delaware is situated in the northeastern region or the New England region of the USA. Let's go ahead and talk about some things to do, some places to see if you're ever in Delaware. So Rehoboth Beach is in Delaware. This holds a special place to me. Dakota, I don't even know if you know this or not, but this is actually the first beach that I've ever been to as a kid. I went with my aunt, uncle, my cousins. The first time I ever traveled out of state, honestly. We went to Rehoboth Beach in Delaware, and I don't really remember much of it, but what I do remember is just how awesome it was seeing the ocean for the first time. Do you?
Oh, I know what that's all about. You were
Yeah,
with me
yeah,
the first time I saw the ocean.
yeah. That's like it's an experience you can't really put into words or sum it up. You just kind of have to experience it for yourself. But if you've lived it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So Rehoboth Beach, pretty awesome spot to me personally. It's an Atlantic town equipped with boardwalks lined with restaurants, shops. There is an amusement park. There is an outdoor bandstand that hosts free concerts all summer long. And to the north, you have Cape Henlopen State Park, which includes sand dunes as well as an observation tower that overlooks Rehoboth Beach. So I mentioned I don't really remember a whole lot. I was pretty young, but Dakota, if you're looking at those pictures, I mean, look how populated that is. I mean, that's a lot of people.
That's more than the whole state holds.
Yeah, it looks like over a million people. So, for me, we've been to Outer Banks a couple of times. We mentioned that last episode. I feel like for the most part, OBX is like super low key. I mean, it's never
This
an
gives
issue.
me some Jersey Shore vibes.
Yeah, yeah, I
This
would agree
picture
with
right
that.
here, you see the patio with the grass. It's
Yeah,
like
yep.
they're above the shore store.
Yeah, there's definitely it looks like one of those places where you better wake up early to get some land on the beach because you're gonna have to fight for it. So um I don't know if you're not into that, this might not be a spot for you, but if you do like that, this could be a really cool spot to check out. Next up, I thought this one looked really cool. It's the Riverfront at Wilmington. So I made a quick mention at the top that Wilmington is the largest city in Delaware. And in Wilmington, you will find the Riverfront. And if you're listening to this show and you're local, if you're from the Akron area like we are, this kind of gives me like some Canal Park, Akron Arrows, Akron Rubber Ducks vibes, if that makes sense. So we have the ballpark that's right on Canal Park. Places to, I mean, it's not as nice, obviously, but in regards to this, there's a 1.75-mile walkway off of Cape Fear River. And it's a beautiful, very well kept area with plenty of things to do, either on a date night or some family fun. So on Riverfront, there's breweries and restaurants. There's a putt-putt course, as well as an IMAX movie theater. And whether it's fireworks for the 4th or Christmas time lights, I mean, the Riverfront is always done up for the holidays. There's a pavilion for concerts and shows. And lastly, on the riverfront, there is Frawley Stadium, which is home to the Wilmington Blue Rock Single A team for the Kansas City Royals. There's some pictures in there for you once again. Yeah, it's kind of giving me like some Lock 3 vibes. You know what I mean?
I mean, there's a lot more than Lock 3 here.
Yeah. I mean, it's
Putt
like
putt.
Lock 3 on steroids. I mean, it looks like a really nice little spot.
I agree.
So if you're in Wilmington, uh, check out the Reggae Fest. You can check out the Riverfront, catch a baseball game or a movie. Lots of different things to do there. And the last thing I got here for our last stop in Delaware, I'm trying to switch it up a little bit. I know a lot of times we have parks, restaurants. So let's try something a little different here. After you spend the day at the beach and you're looking for something to do when the sun goes down, considering that Delaware is the first and oldest state in America, I think it's easy to assume that there has to be a handful of hauntings in the state of Delaware. Are you into that stuff? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm big into the
Okay.
haunting stuff.
Okay, cool. So maybe you'll like this then. So, listed by bestofdelaware.com, there are 11 different locations in the state that are considered to be haunted. Now, I'm not going to list all 11, but I'm going to quickly run down the top 3 haunted locations in the state of Delaware. So, first up, we have the Rockwood Museum. This is a mansion that was actually originally a retirement home. This was dating back to the early 1800s, and this spot is now open for tours and said to be one of the most haunted locations in all of Delaware. Rockwood Museum is also located in Wilmington. So lots to do in Wilmington. If you're in the state, that's definitely a city you got to check out. Next up, we have the Dickinson Mansion. This home was built in 1739. So you can tell a lot of these locations are dating back to as old as America is. That's going to give it a lot of its haunted vibes. It's old. There's a lot that's happened there. So John Dickinson had only lived in this mansion for 2 years. However, the claim is that he refused to leave, and to this day, he still haunts this mansion. You can
One
tour
of
this
our
mansion.
founding fathers there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you can tour this mansion here. It's located in the capital of Dover, Delaware. So yeah, you have a building that's 1739. I feel like even if you're not into hauntings, maybe you just like architecture, maybe you just like old buildings. I think this would be cool to check out regardless. And the last haunting spot I have for you here, it's the Lums Pond State Park. So if you're looking for more of an outdoor adventure as opposed to an indoor haunting, you can check out the Lums Pond State Park. The legend for this goes that in the late 1870s, there was a runaway girl who was murdered in this state park. And to this day, supposedly, you can hear screams and muffled shouts near the Swamp Forest hiking trail. This park also serves as a popular hiking, picnicking, and relaxing destination during the day. So we have places kind of like this around us. I feel like every state has like a crybaby bridge, right?
This
So
sounds more like some skinwalker stuff.
yeah,
You've
kind of
seen
is.
videos where people are just in the woods and they hear screaming.
Yeah. So if you're feeling up to it, come nighttime, you want to check out the Lums Pond State Park and take the trail. That's could maybe you'll see something creepy. Who knows? So that's some things to do, places to see in the state of Delaware. Dakota, I'm gonna throw it over to you now. Tell us a little bit more about some infamous murderers from the state of Delaware.
Yeah, I got four for you. First one, known as the only serial killer in Delaware's history, Stephen Brian Pennell targeted women that were walking alone at night, mainly sex workers. His third victim was last seen getting into a blue Ford, and this was used to find him when a police officer walked the same areas that his victims kept disappearing from, and they posed as a prostitute and end up luring them close to him, and then getting the license plate. And they actually took a piece of fiber from the floor of his car. There was like some carpet, and it matched the last victim's hair. There was fiber in her hair. So that led to his arrest, and he was the first person in 46 years to be executed in the state of Delaware in 1992. I don't really like doing murders from the 1800s, but this is an exception because I can almost guarantee that no other state we cover, there's a woman who has the highest victim count. Martha Patty Cannon was the leader of a gang that made a living kidnapping slaves and other free black people and then sold them back to slave owners. They managed to pull this off for 8 years before they were caught and sentenced to death. And many of bodies were found on her property when they finally caught her. She was set to be hung and was found dead in her cell before that could even happen.
Oh, do you think
Third,
she killed herself? Is that like Jeffrey Epstein?
yeah, yeah, I think she did.
Oh, okay. All right. No conspiracy on that one then. Okay. What do we got next?
Next, we got Billy Bailey. He robbed a store at gunpoint, and while fleeing from police, he stumbled across an elderly couple that was on their farm, and he murdered them. Police were already on the scene as he was fleeing because he robbed the convenience store before. And this dude had like a pistol or something. He tried shooting a helicopter down, but he failed and was captured. And the reason I put this on here is because the significance of his death. He was the last person in U.S. history to be executed via hanging. This was in, I think, 1996. And by this time, it was outlawed. Hanging was deemed unlawful or whatever. I don't know.
Mm,
I'm for it, but a lot of other people aren't. But
okay.
he asked to be hung because he refused to die via lethal injection. He
Isn't
thought that
it
was a coward way out.
isn't it hanged?
Hanged, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So if you were sentenced to death, what would you choose? How would you do it?
Probably lethal injection.
Mm, that sucks. I don't like that answer.
Well, I wouldn't like being electrocuted.
Nah, that would suck
Firing
too.
squad might be cool.
Yeah, or
You I know Utah does firing squad still.
firing squad would be pretty cool. What about guillotine? Just that'd be pretty sweet.
Jeez, I mean, I don't know. I didn't even think about that because that's been outlawed longer than the hang.
I think I'm going for guillotine personally. Just
Okay, an instant
nice.
death.
Yeah,
I think it
yeah.
would be an instant death.
I think it'd be pretty cool. Might go viral.
But the cool thing about this was it took him 11 minutes after they hung him for him to actually die. So
Oh,
he suffered.
are, isn't the whole point of that like? Aren't you supposed to snap your neck like immediately?
Yeah, you're supposed to, but this wasn't the case here. Sometimes it goes wrong, and however they put the noose on or whatever, it doesn't break the neck.
Yikes! So he just kind of choked for like 11 minutes then.
Yep,
Mm, yikes!
good.
Bet he regretted that decision. Okay, and I think we got one more. This was a suggestion.
Yeah, we got a suggestion from a listener. On the night of November 12th, 1988, Charles Cohen, a 23-year-old at the time, called his dad up to his room to check out his latest art piece, but instead he was waiting up there with a 10-pound dumbbell where he attacked him from behind and then stabbed him to death. He then yelled for his mom to come help his dad. He said he like fell down the stairs or
Oh yeah,
something.
come on
And
up.
then he ended up doing the same thing to her, beat her with the dumbbell, and then uh pretty graphic, but he cut her so much that he almost decapitated her.
Oh, almost
So
guillotined her.
then he moved across the country to California, where he would kill again a year later. This was like a high-ranking employee in Wells Fargo, the bank. It was like the vice president or something. He was actually, I don't know if he was in a relationship with him, but
Hmm.
it was something along the lines of them getting together, and then he ended up killing him. But anyways, he would end up being caught 18 months after killing his parents and was living in New Orleans at the time.
Okay. All right. Well, there are some places to check out, things to see, as well as some infamous murders from the state of Delaware.
And there's something interesting about Charles Cohen. This was a long time ago, but his interrogation was recorded, and he told the exact thing I just did, step for step, of how he killed his parents. The whole time he just never mentioned why he did it. He was just so casual about it. It was pretty insane to listen to. And when he got arrested, he told him he would only talk if they gave him some fried chicken. So they gave him some chicken and he started talking.
Interesting. Kicking off this week's case, we're going to go ahead and start by playing a series of 911 calls.
I just heard arguing, and the last thing I heard was what the, and then 3 gunshots.
Obviously, she's hurt. Okay. There's blood all over her face. I think she's conscious, but she's pretty weak.
Okay, is she able to talk at all?
She might. I'm not sure.
Is she still breathing?
I think she's bleeding, but she's in trouble.
Okay, we're almost there. I just want you to keep her comfortable and just make sure she's still breathing, okay?
She's laying on the ground. She has blood all over her body.
Upon arrival to the Paladine Club condominiums very early morning on September 22nd, 2013, police found Olga Connell lying on the ground, still alive, but fighting for her life on the sidewalk in front of her front door. She had suffered multiple gunshot wounds, including one to the head. Paramedics rushed her to the hospital to keep her alive and to find out who did this to her. Unknown to the police from the 911 calls, there was another victim. Upon securing the crime scene, they found Olga's husband, Joe, lying in the bushes, already dead. En route to the hospital, Olga passed away from her injuries, making this a double homicide. Judging from the 911 call about the argument, the crime scene location at the couple's front door, the police believed that the couple had been ambushed as it was after 1 a.m. The two were coming home late because they were celebrating Olga's 39th birthday at the Wilmington Riverfront.
Oh, okay. We're coming full circle here a little bit. Spending the birthday at the Wilmington Riverfront. Married for only 3 months, Joe and Olga Connell enjoyed a very lavish lifestyle. This included frequent vacations to exotic destinations, one being a destination wedding on a beach in the Virgin Islands. They loved deep sea fishing and enjoyed a lot of time on boats, as they did before their untimely death. Joe owned a successful car repair business, which allowed them to afford this life, and Olga had a business experience and helped it flourish. The couple even had a $100,000 Mercedes that they drove around, the sort of thing that can put a target on someone's back by potential robbers.
Police no longer had a witness with Olga's passing. The only evidence they had were a bunch of shell casings by the door. They came up with the conclusion that the gunmen were waiting by the door, and they knew that there was more than one gunman because there were shell casings all around and they were coming from different caliber guns. The twist to this was neither person were missing any valuables. Joe's wallet was still on him with cash inside. Olga's purse had her wallet and her phone inside, and she had her wedding ring on. And so investigators had to look at both of their personal lives to find their killers. Now, there were some rumors around the town that Joe was involved in a Russian crime syndicate, and Olga was Russian, so this made some sense. He had a bodybuilding background and was a known steroid user, and his supposed dealer was this crime family. The belief was that it was a drug deal gone wrong. Police, however, did not believe this and looked at other leads.
Olga had been married once before, so her ex-husband was immediately listed as a potential suspect because there may have been some jealousy going on. But just as quickly as they brought him in, he was able to prove an alt-right alibi and was officially released.
Police got a new suspect from an unlikely source, Joe's own mother, who claimed his younger sister Kelly had been recently feuding with her brother over a $20,000 ring that she owned, and her parents actually took it back and gifted it to Olga for their wedding.
Oh.
Joe eventually gave the ring back, but not before he got all the diamonds removed and replaced with knockoffs.
Oh, that sounds like some motive.
Shortly after this, Kelly found out that it was a fake, and coincidentally, Joe's condo was robbed of all his jewelry, including the new ring that had the diamonds from the old ring. This all happened in the August of 2013, a month before the murders. Still, there was no actual evidence that she was involved.
The police continued to look into the couple's background and people they were involved with. Next for interrogation was Joe's business partner, Chris Rivers. They'd been doing business for 10 years and became best friends. Shockingly enough, the whole time Chris did not ask why he was brought in, nor did he ask about Joe's whereabouts. He acted as if it was to dig up something on Joe because he was hesitant to reveal any information. He did, however, mention the recent feud the two of them had. Joe had stopped showing up to work, and when he did, it was to deal with steroids out of the shop.
Chris started to use this as an opportunity to bash his business partner. He mentioned a jail stint of 7 years that he got for pointing a gun at a cop in a bar fight, saying how Joe and his family were always arguing over something and their whole relationship was just drama. Rivers was eventually told about the murders, but provided an alibi that was then backed up by his girlfriend. Both of the suspects now had an alibi. There was no actual evidence pointing to them being involved. However, there was an arrest made shortly after. Police obtained a search warrant for the auto business where they found the steroids that Chris mentioned that he had found. Possession of these was a felony, so the only surviving owner of the auto shop, Chris was arrested for him.
Oh, all right. So after being released on bail, Chris, angered by the arrest, went to the media for an interview. In this interview, he had nothing but good things to say about Joe, the complete opposite of what he told police, which set off some red flags. Police really seemed to have it out for Chris, and they did a full background check from him, uncovering a lot of untold stories. He was, in fact, a drug user and was severely in debt. Also, phone records showed a lot of deleted texts to a known criminal, Joshua Bay, the night of the murders.
Joshua Bay was a guy who was previously serving as an FBI informant. He was brought in, and to avoid being charged, he pretty much told the police everything. And he was able to strike a plea deal with them, claiming that Rivers paid him to murder Joe, but he didn't actually follow through with it. Instead, he hired two men to do the job for him.
Still, police couldn't understand why Rivers would want the Connells dead. That was until Joe's life insurance policy was found, which would pay out his business partner $1 million if anything happened to him. Recently married, the policy would go to his wife, which is why Olga had to be killed as well.
Chris Rivers was charged for first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison, while Bay only got 5 years for his role as a middleman. The two people hired for the murder had different sentencing, though. Aaron Thompson was charged as the triggerman and was sentenced to life, while the other man, Dominic Benson, only got 5 years for conspiracy, which is pretty strange considering that the police admitted that they found different shell casings on the ground. So unless Thompson was using two different guns, which would be crazy, both of them had to be involved. In closing, Kelly O'Connell was found to not have anything to do with the murders in the end.
I think that's really interesting, the fact that the two people got two different sentencings. Usually it doesn't, from what I can recall, usually it doesn't matter who did what. I feel like if you're both involved, you're kind of just, you get the same thing, guilty by association. So very interesting.
We've seen, looking back on Washington, like there were 4 people involved.
Yeah.
Or 3 people involved. Or no, 4 if you count the person that hired them.
Yep.
All of them got over 20 years. Like 2 of them got life, the other got over 20. It's crazy to me that Benson only got 5 years just for conspiring.
Makes me
when
feel
he was
like
actually hired to do the job.
Makes me feel like maybe my guy had some information on something else potentially. Maybe he was able to work something out.
Maybe he was already an FBI informant.
Maybe. That's really strange that I only got 5 years. Interesting. Okay. All right. So real quick, I wanted to just say a quick shout out once again to Kenzie on TikTok for referring us to the state of Delaware, which is where we were heading today for our fictitious journey. Dakota, that's some places to see, things to do. You discussed some infamous murders as well as our murder case of the week. So last week we were in South Carolina. This week we're in Delaware. As always, I like to throw it over to you with all things discussed. Let me know what you think about the state of Delaware, and ultimately, where would you rank it on your list of desired states to visit?
Oh, there's not much to do in Delaware, as we've seen. It's pretty hard to find stuff. I'm sure The haunting things, I do like haunted stuff, but I like, if I'm gonna travel for haunted stuff, I want it to be known.
Okay.
And I haven't heard any of those. I mean, I heard of John Dickinson, but I haven't heard of his mansion being there or anything. And yeah, he barely even lived there. So I wouldn't go there for the haunted stuff. I'm gonna have to put Delaware probably 33.
33. All right.
Yeah.
Delaware coming in at 33. Yeah, I do feel like, I mean, thus far, I mean, Rhode Island and Delaware, it's certainly harder to find things to do, places to see, the smaller the state is. So, I mean, we'll see if that trend continues, but thus far, I mean, it's proven to be pretty tricky. So, hey, 33, not the worst state on your list by far. So, again, if you are in Delaware, if you're from Delaware, if you're planning on going there for whatever reason, maybe that's something you can check out. But Dakota, I'm actually getting ready to close up shop. I'm gonna be departing to South Carolina this afternoon. And by the time this is posted, I should already be on the beach.
Lucky guy.
Pretty excited. So, with all that being said, as we begin our departure from the state of Delaware and conclusion of episode 15 of 50 States, 50 Murders, we want to continue to thank you, listener, for tuning in each and every week as we continue covering a new state as well as a murder case that happened to take place there.
If you've not already, please be sure to follow and subscribe and tune in next week for episode 16.